Welcome to On the Line. It is Tuesday, March 28th, and we are back to discuss all the latest happenings in high school track and field. On today's episode, we'll discuss the exciting outdoor action that went down around the country over the weekend. We'll also highlight some of the key fields and athletes to look forward to this weekend at the National Meet of the Week, which is the Pepsi Florida Relays. We'll also chat about Penn Relays, national records, our top sprint states, and even more on this jam-packed episode of On the Line. I'm Ashley Tishins here with my amazing co-hosts, Olivia Ekpenday and Corey Mole. Guys, how you doing? Olivia, I'll start with you.
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. Enjoying the nice sunshine that we have here in the DMV area. It's been a little cold, but now it's starting to warm up a little bit, which is great. How about you, Ashley?
Doing pretty good. I can't complain. It's definitely on the warmer side here as well in Austin, Texas. Isn't that right, Corey?
Yes. Well, you and I both got out yesterday to Cedar Park to film a
True.
workout, and
Yes.
it was chilly.
It was. I was wearing shorts and I was a little cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was fun.
I'm not surprised by that with Ashley.
Should I
Know that-
save
know that
my
about her.
show Rex for end of show or start of show?
I don't know. What do you prefer? Do we want to start it off right off the bat? Do you got some good stuff to say?
I got one big rec. I was telling you about the binge I had this weekend on Netflix. The Night Agent. It's a conspiracy drama about an undercover agent, I guess, from the FBI, learns of something going awry, and he tries to solve it, and a lot of mystery happening. Very, very, a bingey. It's a bingey show.
Okay.
Dingy. Love it.
Interesting. I guess we'll have to keep that in mind then. So thank you, Corey. Maybe our listeners will watch it too. So
Yeah.
very awesome. Well, guys, we have so much to talk about. So let's just dive right into it. Let's begin with the week that was part one. Lots of exciting stuff went down on the track this weekend in Florida, Texas, the Southeast, and elsewhere. So I have to know what performances stood out to you guys. And Olivia, I'll begin with you.
I must say, I think we need to kick off with our national meet of the week, which was the FSU relays. I know Ashley and I have been texting back and forth pretty much all weekend. I was texting Brandon Miles like, oh my goodness, what is happening? I was even asking Brandon if they were flipping the track because of the wind. I needed to know the wind gauges. As soon as I saw that Adeja Hodge and Asama Singa were going to be on the line, let's talk about Adeja Hodge first, because that 100 meters was just spectacular. She opened up, you guys, with a number 10 all-time performance with 11:18, and then in the 200 the day before went 22:84 wind dated, which is number 11 all-time for all conditions. And I was just blown away. I'm also not surprised by it, just because we saw it coming, right? We saw what she did during the indoor season, just being so consistent in the 60. Left everything out on the track for New Balance National indoors in that 200 meters. So we knew that something great was going to happen. And I remember last week we were just talking about what that would look like for them. And honestly, I think they put it all on the line. So that kind of switches my gear a little bit to Asama Singa. This 200 meters was just absolutely insane. 20.57 wind legal, and also ran a 10:06 wind dated, which was number 13 all time. So here's his 200 meters, just completely crushed this turn and just came off the turn and just separated himself from the rest of this field. And it's so funny just hearing Brandon Miles commentate this. He's like, wow, this is no kids play right now happening. And Asama Singa just did his thing. Also from Mountain Verde Academy, Michelle Smith did the 400 meter hurdle, 800 meter double, which I think personally is really hard to do. The toughest two races personally, I think, in the sport of track and field. And she lowered her US number one time in the 400 meter hurdles with a 58:41. And then she also clocked a personal best in the 800 with a 2:07.95, which is a US number two. And also Kyle Johnson leaped 23 feet 11 inches wind dated in the long jump. But outside of Mount Verde, Patrick Kuhn was also competing there, 8:52.60 to be US number two in the 3,200 meters. And then Alex Leith, who is the third fastest boy in the country right now in the 800, went 1:50.63. So lots of great performances at the FSU relays.
Gosh, yeah, so much happened at FSU over the weekend. Corey, any other thoughts on FSU or any other performances you saw this weekend?
I wish we had a tape that we could go back to. I did say or 22.8 and 20.5. Just saying.
That's true.
I did put those numbers out, and it did happen. But we've been talking a lot about Montverde Academy, rightfully so. But there's a lot more track happening than the Florida powerhouse, and all of the credit to them. But there are some big time events happening this weekend, and I was so glad to see the return of Jesuit Shaner in Dallas and Victor Lopez, two huge meets in the Dallas and then the Houston areas. When we look at the overall results from those meets, it was actually unreal. Across both the boys and the girls' top performances, they had 341 from the weekend. We have a top 25 performances of the weekend every Monday, and 341 from those two meets alone came across the tagline. So that just goes to show just how dominant those efforts were on those tracks, and specifically Victor Lopez in Houston, where you have the skyline in the background. It's a beautiful kind of aerial there. But Donovan Bradley of Humble Summer Creek was the guy that stood out to me the most. He ran 36.23 in the 300-meter hurdles, and that's currently the U.S. #1 top mark by 0.5 of a second. So he's clearly out and in control of that distance right now, and there's a lot of Texans that have run it really, really well. At this point of the season, I think he could be chasing 35. I think Robert Griffin's record of 35.33 is a 4-way off, but to get to 35 for Donovan at this point, it seems reasonable, and I think he put in a good effort there. And then lastly, coming over to Arizona, there was a new state record in the javelin. Hayden Gorvitz of Desert Vista, 2:21.8 at the Willie Williams Classic. That's really, really good. He's just inside the top 60 performances of all time, and that's a new state record, as I said. But he might be chasing, some big marks, 240s. I don't know if we get into the 250s with him. That's a huge, I think, jump to make in the javelin. But I do think some special things can come from Hayden Gorvitz over the season, and he had a great performance over the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely some big performances in Texas, Arizona, and beyond. And I know we already talked about the FSU relays, but we also had another relay event happening in my hometown, the Raleigh Relays, this weekend. So let me take a few minutes to dive into some of that happened there. They had two high school events there, the boys and girls 3,200, and we saw some really good performances there. First, we had in the boys' side, Jake Liebert of Wando in South Carolina. He makes the trip up to North Carolina and won the 3,200 there in a U.S. #4, 8:55.50. And on the girls' side, it was Mary Bonner Dalton, who kept the girls' 3,200 meter title in-house in the state of North Carolina, clocked a PR of 10:23 and beat out some tough opponents, and CNS's Kate Putman, some of the girls from Cuthbertson as well. So that was a really good effort from her there. And outside of the typical high school races at Raleigh Relays, we saw Kiara O'Shea. She competes in the college field, runs unattached. She competes in the college field for the 5,000 meters, and she ran 16:23.67 to win her heat, and that's U.S. #1 outdoors for the time being. 27th overall out of 170 competitors, so that was pretty impressive as well. And kind of elsewhere, kind of wrapping up some of the other performances I saw, particularly in the Southeast over the weekend, I want to talk about Bryson Miller. I know me and Olivia were talking about this guy over the weekend out of Dorman High School in South Carolina. He ran a new nation-leading mark of 46.09 in the 400 meters to win the Bob Jenkins Coaches Classic in South Carolina. He said in his post-race interview that the 400 he loves it. It's his wife. So I think we could see some even bigger things from him going forward in the season. Our favorite 4-star football recruit, Dwight Phillips Jr., he lowered his 100-meter best to 10.26. So pretty impressive stuff there.
Was he wearing long sleeves?
I don't know. No race video.
Evidence.
We need a video. And lastly, I have to give a shout out to Ryan Rankin. He jumped 7.1, a new high jump PR. That's really impressive there. He's in a tie now for U.S. #3 in the high jump this season, and that was at the Game Changers Apex Invite. Now, after we just broke down all these crazy performances, let's move to the week that was part 2 and talk about, there were some surprising moments that happened this weekend, some interesting feats, some new records and such. So I want to ask y'all, what were some of your most shocking, things that stood out to you over the weekend? Corey, I'll start with you.
Well, I think on its face, a lot of people saw that Kai Ricks ran 149. Aaron Solomon ran 150, and the discussion was, whoa, Aaron Solomon got beat. Well, I mean, 150 at this point in the season in March is really, really good, and he said it himself after the race. I'm happy with the result. I mean, anytime somebody goes 149, that's deserving of a win. And I think the surprising part might be Kai running that fast, considering he ran 155 last year. But this just could be, at a Long Beach Poly, this could be a realization for this guy. He clearly has the talent to maintain past the 400-meter distance. He's clearly a great 400-meter runner. He's already ran 47-point indoors and outdoors. And, when you look at him in the 800 now, you got to think what's possible from Kai Ricks. 149 in March is a really good starting point for him. And I think they can build off of that. Long Beach Poly has a strong history of developing athletes, and I'm really excited to see where he goes. On Aaron's side, he said before the season he's chasing this 146.45 of Michael Granville. Cade Flatt went after it last year, just missed. I think he's still on the mark. I think he's still kind of pressing forward to it, because if we look at Cade's season last year, he ran in April. That was his first race of the season. His first 146 came in May. Aaron, 150 at this point is really, really good, and you're going to build toward that. The only thing I think I would be curious to know is just what his race plan is, because Cade didn't run a lot last year, and I think that helped him in a positive way, because he didn't have a lot in his legs, and he was able to go after those times when he needed to. If Aaron ends up running the 8, the mile, 32, if he does put a lot of races into his legs, then I'd be worried a little bit, because you're doing a lot of things well, but maybe not one thing excellent. So I'm just curious to see maybe where his head is at and how he goes after this record, because it will take an all hands on deck kind of approach if you go for 146.45.
That's for sure. Yeah, definitely very impressive stuff in there in the boys 800. Olivia, what surprised you the most this weekend?
Yeah, I have to agree with Corey. Just I want to piggyback on some of the comments that Corey made when it came to that 800 at the APU Meet of Champions. Just 149.19. This part of the season, middle of March, that is super spectacular. And just knowing that we still have a couple more months left of this outdoor season. And I agree with Corey with everything that he said. It takes, just looking at what Cade Flatt did last year. It took some time for the races to really start chipping away, right? And I feel like with Aaron Solomon and same thing with Cade Flatt, they had that vision for it. It was the tunnel vision, this is the goal. By all means, this is what I'm going to do. I know I listened to Aaron Solomon's post-race interview, and he did talk about how he went pretty aggressively that first 400, and it was very evident. And I think moving forward, he's when he goes to Arcadia, he's going to change the race strategy a little bit different and maybe not get out as aggressive that first 400 meters. That way he has something left in the tank. So I feel like even with these races, 150 is very solid. But another great thing about Aaron Solomon is he knows what he can work on. And I think that's also going to help him moving forward. These are the adjustments I'm going to make. Therefore, I can hit these certain times. So outside of that exciting 800-meter race, I want to talk about Emma Srala. She really caught my eye over this weekend. She's the World U20 champion in the discus for Sweden. And she just got closer to Shelby Vaughn's national high school record in the discus. Shelby Vaughn, who was also my teammate at Texas A&M, threw 198.9 in 2012 at the USA Track and Field Junior Olympics. And Srala threw 193.8 at the Jesuit Shiner Relay, which is number 2 all time. When you look at the all-time list, Emma and 2 other girls, including Shelby Vaughn, have thrown over 190 feet in that event, which I thought was super spectacular. So the fact that Emma Srala is just kind of chipping away and getting closer and closer and closer to that national record, I think we're on a national record watch for that event.
I think I agree. And Srala, put down something really impressive there. I know we'll dive a little bit more into national records that could potentially go down later in this show, but definitely some good stuff there. I want to shift it back indoors for a second to talk about my most surprising result of the weekend. The Park Tudor distance duo of Gretchen Farley and Sophia Kennedy at the unofficial Indiana Indoor State Championships, the Hoosier State Relays. They helped Park Tudor to their first state track title in the school's history. But the way in which they did it, if you look at kind of the stat line here, it's almost remarkable. Each of them ran 4 events. They ran the 3200, the DMR, the 4x8, and the 4x4 And this all occurred within like a 3-hour span here, which is just incredible. So let me go through just exactly the stats that they put down. So if you look at Gretchen Farley, she goes 10:42 in the 3200, 3:36 in the 12 for the DMR, 2:10 in the 4x8, and 57.5 in the 4x4. Like that's some pretty legit stuff there. And then Kennedy here, she goes 10:16 in the 32, 4:57 the 1600 for the DMR leg, 2:17 the 4x8, and then 63 seconds in the 4x4. I mean, that's just incredible there. And, kudos to them because that's no easy feat, and they help Park Tudor to a state title there. So congrats to them on that performance.
Gretchen is a gamer.
Yeah.
Does a little bit of everything all around the school, not just a runner.
That's right. She does soccer and basketball, I believe, too, correct?
She was coming off a postseason in basketball, recently. And
I think I saw she's like a 1,000-point scorer, too, for Park Tudor. So
she is.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
A lot faster than most people give her credit for. 57.5 is fine.
I mean, that's legit, especially for a distance runner there, so that's really cool.
Yep.
Now, as we kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're closing into April here, and that means that we're now we're less than a month away from the 2023 Penn Relays. And guys, I know we're all excited. We're going to be on the ground there. Live on Flow Track. We released this really cool, kind of hype video today on our Instagram and social media channels. And, I have to know, now that we're just a month out, Corey and Olivia, you were on the ground at this meet last year. What are you two looking forward to the most at the 2023 Penn Relays? And Corey,
I think
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Olivia.
I have had the honor of competing at Penn Relays since I was in high school. I ran it at high school level, collegiate level, post-collegiate level, and the fact that I was able to be on the ground last year from a different perspective, working with Flow Track and MileSplit as well. It's just an exciting, it's the most exciting meet of the whole entire year. And the fact that you're seeing all of these people from all over the world come in, I'm looking forward to the Championship of America events, especially when it comes to the Jamaicans coming in, bringing in their squads. And also, I did not have a chance to get a funnel cake last year. I'm very disappointed. So I think that's on the agenda for this year. I have to find the funnel cake. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Okay, so Championship of America races and funnel cake. We know what Olivia wants to, see
When
at
are you
Penn
going to have
Relays.
time to get funnel cake? Come on now.
I'll figure it out.
You can eat it, as you're, commentating whatever you're doing, you'll find a way to fit it in.
That's true.
Corey, what are you most excited for?
This might be a little blasphemous, but I think going to the Penn Relays last year, the biggest impression that I got, not only just the Jamaican fans, but the Jamaican high schools just flat out dominating in the Championship of Americas. Seeing these teams up close and personal firsthand really gives you a sense of just how good they are. Last year before the Penn Relays, Nolan Jez wrote a little story, and in it he said U.S. teams will need national records to win. Well, that really was the case because when you look at the relays across the Penn Relays last year, it was Jamaican dominant, 4x1. 8 of 9 teams on the boys' side were Jamaican team won. Girls 4x1, 6 of 9 were Jamaican team won. Boys 4x4 and girls 4x4, Jamaican team won. Majority was Jamaican teams. The 4x8s was where American high schools had more of a presence, but Jamaican teams still won. So that was the biggest impression for me, just seeing how these teams really succeed. And I think there is a difference. There's a crucial difference in that I think the eldest Jamaican high schoolers are 19. So they are older than most U.S. high schoolers, which, maturation, physical development, that does make a difference, if I'm not mistaken here. So that might be why we see that. But also there's a cultural standpoint, too, with Jamaica, where in our country, high school football sort of rules most states, and it is like the touch point for community. And track is a huge participation sport, but in Jamaica, track and field is our football, and it's what they truly live and bleed and breathe for. So you got to see that at Penn Relays, and it's every time go into it, I think that's one of the biggest things that you take away. Yeah,
no, definitely be excited to see all of that. I've never been to Penn Relays, so I'm definitely, I feel like I'm looking forward to especially just the whole atmosphere of, Franklin Field, just kind of all that, because it's such a historic event, as we all know, and
Mhm.
to be a part of something and to see it firsthand is going to be really cool. Like Olivia said, I'm really excited for especially the relays, because I can remember back to, gosh, when I was in high school, seeing highlights from, like, example, the Drew Hunter DMR, which will probably always, that kick there always go down
Yep.
as one of the best kicks ever.
Kipyego almost had that last year. He almost had that moment last year.
True.
But yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I feel like we're always going to see some really exciting stuff in the relays. And again, from Jamaica, the Jamaican high schoolers, it'll be really exciting to see. So I'm looking forward to it. Corey and Olivia obviously are too. Again, kind of make sure to follow along with MileSplit as we head into Penn relays. We're going to be releasing content weekly, giving you all the information you need to know heading into the historic event. All right, guys, it's time to dive into the national meet of the week already. And this weekend, we have one of the most premier, outdoor meets of the season. It's going to be the Pepsi Florida Relays. And we've got talent from Florida and elsewhere traveling to this meet, looking to compete for titles this weekend. And I have to begin. So if you look at some of the all-time records for Florida Relays, there are some that really seem like they could go down, especially with the type of talent we've seen in the sprints and the hurdles this season. And I want to start with Corey. What Florida Relays meet record do you think could go down this weekend?
Well, I want to ask both of you a question.
Okay.
So, I think if we look at the one race in particular on the girls' side, the 100-meter hurdles, that I think, you both agree that is pretty loaded. Is it most likely to happen? Could it happen? Or will it not likely happen? 13-2 in the 100-meter hurdles. Now, the record here is 13-19 by Chanel Brissett back in 2016. Is that more likely to happen? Maybe or not? And I want to ask both of you that.
I'm going to say more likely, and I will tell you why. If you look at, so the top girl in this field has to be Elisa Samuel, and she's already run 13:26 this season into a -2 headwind there. Like, that's just insane. And that was in her opener in February. Like, we've seen almost a month pass, or over a month pass since then. She's had the training and the time to put in the work and kind of fine-tune some of those little things in the hurdles. And so I really think she has a chance to go after that record personally. So I'll say more likely. Olivia, what are your thoughts on this?
I have to agree with you. I say more likely. I know you just talked about Alicia Samuel, like 13:26 into a -2.0 win, like you mentioned, Ashley, is as your opener. Like, that's the crazy thing, is it's her opener. And then also she went back and won New Balance National Indoors in the 60-meter hurdles. We know that she's been putting in the training. She's strong. I'm assuming she's healthy right now. I feel like this record could go down. And the fact that we have the field to do it, you also have another sophomore, Chelsea Williams, that's going to be in that field. Mila Green from the Bullis School. The Bullis School is going to be in Florida. So Brittany Jennings, who's US number 9, is going to be in that field. You have a handful of the nation's top sprinters right now lining up in that 100-meter hurdle race. Plus, you have Mila Green, who's one of the top returners. I think she was the top 4th returner when it comes to the short hurdle race. So the competition's going to be there. The weather seems to look nice. I did not check the forecast, but it's Florida, so I'm assuming it's going to be nice and hot and toasty. It's going to be great. So, yeah, that 100-meter hurdle race, I think it's more likely that record could go down.
I'm going to say not likely.
Of course. You're always going to disagree.
You're
always going to disagree.
Yeah. Well, just surpassing 13-2 would be a top 15 performance all time. And that's saying win legal too. I think we have to combat the idea of, like, they're going to switch the straightaway wherever the wind is leading us. So you have to think that, if there's a large wind, it could go fast, but it might not be legal. And if it is legal, I don't think it's going to happen, because I don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, I like all three of these girls to compete for a win here. Mila Green and Bullis is heading down there, as you said. Chelsea Williams, Elisa Samuel. I think they all could compete for a win, based on their race pattern and how they compete over the hurdles. But 13-2 is fast. 13-2 is flying, and we don't see it very often. So even though we're at the Pepsi Florida Relays where things just happen, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to just, based on the odds, say that it's less likely to happen.
Interesting.
Okay.
Even though Samuel has already gone 13.26 into a headwind.
Yes.
700ths of
Into
a
a
second
strong
improvement, though.
headwind.
Most athletes, their resume is like a bell curve. It's not all like one time and faster. It's up and down and around. So, performances, ebb and flow and they change.
We'll definitely have to see what happens this weekend, but we definitely know for sure that the girls' 100-meter hurdles is going to be really exciting to watch at the Pepsi Florida Relays. Now, if you go to the boys' side here, one of the top races to watch has to be this 400. And guys, it's loaded with top talent from Florida. You got people like Aiden Dixon, Zaire Nuruddin, Makai Danzy, Javian Green, and Olivia. I know you're really excited for this race, and you have a lot of thoughts here. So kick us off. What are you excited, to see in this 400 here for the boys?
We really need to figure out how I can get a clicker to like drop emojis all over the screen because I would be dropping
Nico could
I would be
probably
dropping
do
fire
that.
emojis. Yeah, I need Nico to figure that out. So the fire emojis all across the board. I am like, when I saw the lineup for this, I was like, okay, I'm super pumped. So far this outdoor season, 8 boys have dipped under 47 seconds in the 400 meters across the nation. So I'm curious now who else wants to be added into that list. That meet record of 45.78 potentially could be in jeopardy, and that was set last year by Zaire Nuruddin, who is, of course, a defending champion, number 27 all time. And this is also going to be his season opener. I saw where he was on the list to run at the FSU Relays last week. He did not run at all, so I'm kind of curious to see if he's going to line up this weekend against this heavy competition. But we cannot move forward without talking about Aiden Dixon because this boy has been on a roll over the last couple months. This was his performance at just a few weeks ago at the East Coast Classic where he ran a 46.95. This was the smoothest 46 I have ever seen. And this is Florida number 2 right now, y'all. Like before indoor nationals, he was the first boy to break 47 seconds in the quarter. And he went and ran a 46.98 at the Florida Indoor Championships and then finished second at Nike Indoor Nationals. And then literally just a couple days or maybe a week later opens up with a 46.95. So we know that's there for him. He's going to receive some competition from Makai Danzy, who is the fastest boy right now in the state of Florida, U.S. number 3, with a 46.16, and that he did last week at the FSU Relay. So it's going to be a loaded field. We also can't forget Javian Green, also Zaire Nuruddin's teammate from Mountain Bird Academy. He's Florida number 4, 47.04. So again, we're having a handful of the state's fastest, the nation's fastest, all lining up for this 400 meters. And I really think with the competition, the pressure being on the line, we could see a sub 46, especially with how we're seeing the 46s kind of dropping across the nation. I feel like it's bound to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. And, I also want to dive a little bit more into, I know you mentioned Makai Danzy on that list as well, as someone that could, contend for this title. If I'm looking at this race, to me, he's the favorite here, personally. If you look at his resume already this season, you said he's gone 46.16 at FSU Relays last weekend. That's U.S. number 3, Florida number 1. Before that, he went 47.24 at Bob Hayes, and those are his only 2 400-meter performances this season so far. If you look at what he did last year, Danzy only went under 47 seconds once, and that was at the AAU Junior Olympics all the way in August. And in just 2 competitions already, he's gone 47 point and then sub 47. So I feel like if that is any indication of, this development that he's had over the course of the year, then I'd say Danzy's got to be the favorite here, in my opinion. Corey, what are your thoughts looking at this?
And fun fact, he goes to Tallahassee, Florida High School.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Florida High School. That's kind of
Yes.
fun. I like that.
Florida High School.
Where are you from? Florida? What high school did you go to? Florida. Kind of interesting. Looking at the list, obviously everyone's talented. They have the potential to win, and I think I like Javian Green. He is the teammate of Nuruddin, but he ran really well in that 4x4 indoors, and I think he's got a lot of talent. I think I'm going to talk a little bit more, I guess, not necessarily on the potential and time of this, but maybe the psychology of the 400, because, a lot of these guys have the potential to run in the 46s, and Nuruddin has run 45 before. Getting them back to that point is always the objective for the coach. And, I talked to a coach recently about sort of the balance you have to make when you work with athletes. And sometimes it is about purely the physical nature of the sport, and you have to work on the technical little details that get you over the hump. But the bigger side of it often is the psychology and the mental strength that you
Hmm.
have to show getting through events. And especially with the 400, when you're matched up against all these guys that can beat you, maybe you are the favorite, but if you know these guys are just as good as you, sometimes you have to get in the right headspace to get to that point. And I think what it will take is just having the mental strength to believe that you can win the race, get to a point in the race where you can run your time. And I think that's kind of the fascinating part of it too, because you have this race. It lives in the moment for like 46 seconds, and then it leaves, and then you got to get ready for the next one. How you
Hmm.
deal with that is what is how your character is born in this sport. So I think it's part of it here. That's a little bit too a little broad, but I'm just saying with these guys, they have to get in that mental standpoint to know that they can win.
Yeah, the 400 definitely takes some grit there, and I guess we'll see this weekend which guy maybe has the most grit and can pull out the win at Florida. But as we know, the sprints aren't going to be the only events where we see some top athletes competing this weekend at Florida Relays. We're also going to have some elite field events going on and some top talents there. So I have to ask you two, who is a field event athlete that you have your eyes on going into the weekend? Olivia, I'll begin with you.
Yes, I want to talk about Sasha Gregory. She's from Nice High School, and she's going to be kind of all over the track a little bit, you can say. But her main event is she's going to be in that long jump. She's coming off of a very strong performance last weekend at the FSU Relays. She jumped a win legal mark of 19 feet and a quarter of an inch, which currently ranks her U.S. number 7 and also Florida number 1. She's also going to be in the high jump, and she's also going to be in the 100-meter hurdle races as well. So she made it to states last year in the high jump. So what I'm looking forward to seeing from Sasha is how she's going to adapt to these performances and how she's going to put it all together to kind of inch her way towards being the best in the state, right? Because if you think about it, I know we're about to be in April, but the Florida State Championships are in mid-May. So before we even know it, they're going to be competing at state championships and kind of making their way through districts, regionals, and all the things. So I'm excited to see what she does here and just kind of put everything together.
Yeah, it sounds like she's going to have a busy weekend, so that'll be exciting to see. Corey, which field athlete do you have your eye on?
I was trying to rack my brain on like which one I should focus on, and I did come into the boys high jump, which I believe we
Yeah.
both kind of land on the same guy here.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think we haven't had a lot of high jumpers that have like really progressed, up into that 7 foot range. Indoor season, we didn't have anybody up until the very last week of indoor. And Ryan Rankin from Georgia has come into the Florida Relays, and he's gone over 7 feet a couple times. Last year, he proved that he could be over 7 feet at least five separate instances. So, for him, his highest bar has been 7.1, and now this is his senior year. And you kind of want to improve, you want to work toward that higher mark. How do you get there? How does your series of attempts go? Like, how are you working on the technique things that get you higher? That's probably the story here for Ryan.
Yep, and we're on the same page, Corey, because he's definitely the athlete I'm looking forward to seeing this weekend. And I mean, 7-1, like that's legit there. That's really good. I also saw a video, I think on his Twitter page, where he at some meet recently, he just narrowly missed like 7.3 and a half or something like that, which that would be US number 1. So he's definitely, up there among the top, contenders. And he set the meet record last year at this event at 6.11 and a half, I believe. So I anticipate that he'll probably, look to improve on that quite a bit. And I think he's the clear favorite here, so I'll be really curious to see what Rankin does this weekend. But all around, be sure to check out MileSplit Florida. They'll be having on-site coverage, providing you with all your photos, articles, videos, everything you want to know about the Florida Relay. So be sure to stay tuned this weekend for our National Meet of the Week. Now, I know we've been talking a lot about relays, it seems, this show. We've talked about FSU relays, Raleigh relays, Florida relays. I mean, so many relays. Now, I have to ask y'all, there's a lot of, other kind of relay sort of oriented events in this category as well that are seen as more of like the premier events around the country every outdoor season. You got, Penn relays, Texas relays, Mount Sac relays, the list goes on and on. If you were an athlete, like right now, and you had to pick which one you wanted to go to and compete at, which one would you pick? and why? Corey, where are you going to go compete at?
I feel like these are like, if we make the comparison to football, this is like the Orange Bowl, the Cotton
Yes,
Bowl.
yeah.
Right?
That's a good, I like that.
This is like out in California, the Rose
Yeah.
Bowl. Going to Penn Relays last year was a huge experience for me just to see that firsthand, and that was different than any meet I've ever been to. I've been to Texas Relays a handful of times. I actually just filed a credential yesterday. I want to go on Saturday to see how the Mullins do. But I like Texas Relays. Anytime there's a big meet at Mike Meyer Stadium, the energy is awesome. It's just like flat out awesome, especially when it's a nice day out and people are there and they're wearing their hats and stuff. But I tend to like the high school championships there a little bit more because of the nature of it, right? There's amateurs and they're just going for those state titles, and people coming from all over the state just to go to the state championship. So I tend to like that a little bit more. So if I'm trying to pick here, I'm going to pick Penn because there's nothing like Penn, I think, anywhere. It's a huge, Franklin Field's beautiful. It's amazing. It's huge. It wraps around the track. You really get all perspectives there. And it's just a iconic stadium and a great place to see track firsthand.
Yep, Penn Relays is definitely a historic event in track and field. Olivia, I kind of have an idea of, I think, where your head's going to be going with this one, but tell me, where would you compete if you had to compete right now in one of these big, football bowl games of sorts for track and field?
Well, Ashley, I think I know where your brain is going for the fact that we're
because you
both
can
on
see
that
your
same
notes.
page.
No, but even without the
even
notes.
beforehand, without the notes, I was like, I already know where Ashley's going to be. But I might be biased, and I try to go not with the typical Penn Relays because that would ultimately be my number one pick. I just love the atmosphere. It's amazing. So I'm going to go with Texas Relays for this one. And the reason being is because I guess when I moved from Maryland to go to Texas A&M, I felt like when I arrived at Texas A&M, like Texas A&M and the Texas Relays was like my equivalent to Penn. So everyone was talking about Texas Relays, like this is the meet to go to. And I went, as a collegiate athlete and also post-collegiately as well. I was like, okay, this is pretty exciting, but I'm definitely a huge Penn Relays fan. But what I'm looking forward to, just like thinking about like my experiences and me being at Texas Relays, we had the opportunity like last year. And as Corey mentioned, like Amanda Mall broke the national high school record in the pole vault at this meet. Roderick Pleasant also ran a 10:39. Micah Bell went 10:41 in the 100 meters. We saw Autumn Wilson run 11:19 and blew away the field. Like it was just so amazing just to think of what happened last year at the high school level, but also you got to see what happened on the professional side. Like I remember Gabby Thomas winning the 200 meters in 21:69 against a completely loaded field. And she also won the 100. It's like, it's the meet where you can truly see different levels of success from high school to college to professional. The weather is always nice. It's always toasty there. I just think about Penn.
That one's debatable. That's
Penn
debatable.
Relays?
That's debatable.
Penn Relays, it's going to rain at least one day when we're there. Like it's guaranteed.
Texas, no, it didn't rain last year.
Texas
Relays,
It did rain.
I think
That
the
was
weather's
the only year.
debatable.
That was the only year last
That's
year.
debatable in Texas, I think.
Well, actually, you'll see. Like the weather, it's just colder. But outside of that, like that's the reason why I look forward to Texas Relays.
This
I'm
comes
all
from
for warm
a
weather.
woman
You guys should
who
know
hates
that.
anything under 60 degrees, which is not normal. So it's fine. Weather's
too
perfectly
cold.
fine.
Okay, then maybe what I need to do is I need to go to Texas Relays this weekend and then compare that to the Penn Relays experience, and then I
Yes.
can solve this debate here. That's what I'll do. Okay.
That you should do.
All right. I'll put that on my to-do list. But, if I have to pick a relay event that I would attend if I were an athlete right now, I know this is a little biased, but I'd probably have to pick the Raleigh Relays. And let me explain, y'all. Let me explain. Okay.
High school or college? If you're a high school athlete or a college athlete?
Both, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
So, back in high school, if you were to say qualify for, they used to have a mile section and a 3200. If you were to qualify for one of those events, like that was a big deal in high school in the Raleigh area, or like even the surrounding like Charlotte, like any of those areas in North Carolina. Like wow, like you must be a big name if you're running in this race. And me and my high school friends and teammates, we'd go every year and we'd sit there and watch the races and the college ones too. And looking at just the collegiate performances from this past weekend at Raleigh Relays, like we saw, I think, some nation leading marks for the NCAA and like the 10K and the 5K, which was insane. And it's really one of those, I feel like it's every year it just gets bigger and bigger, the Raleigh relays. And it's, especially for a lot of the distance events, that it's under the lights and it's really exciting. The energy's always really, really high there. Some great competition. So personally, I would go to Raleigh relays.
You think that's more skewed towards distance athletes generally?
I would say,
because there's only
they do a lot of
yeah.
like if you look at the amount of competitors and how many heats are of like the 5K and the 10K, which you don't see like hardly ever. Like it's insane. Like I remember in high school we would sit there and watch 20 heats of the 5K, which is a lot.
That's commitment.
I know. It was
that is commitment.
It's a whole other beast to watch 5Ks, especially on a track.
Do either of you watch NASCAR?
Oh gosh, no.
No.
Don't you find that interesting? We love track and field, but we don't
like NASCAR. Yeah, I guess that's true, but I don't know. It's just not the same.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not.
Corey, then I'm assuming you don't watch NASCAR either.
I don't know. I'm the same way. I don't understand it. I guess because people who are NASCAR fans and what's the other race car?
Oh, at Formula One.
At Formula One, they dive into the storylines of these sports, right? And we focus on the human storylines of track athletes too. It's kind of similar, but I get maybe it's just the cars. I don't really know.
I think that's what it is. It's like the difference of like you driving a car versus you using your actual body to like go do something.
Yeah.
I think that has to be what it is in my mind. Well, cool. So we know, next year we're gonna all enter unattached in these meets and go compete. So.
Hey, you saw me jog the other day.
That's true. It's time to start training. All right, let's move on to another debate here, and I feel like we've talked about this before in previous months, maybe during indoor too. But there are a lot of different states that have specifically some really strong sprinters and sprint squads, and there's some that come to mind like Texas, Georgia, Florida, Virginia, North Carolina. Like those are some of the big powerhouses that come to mind. In your eyes, which of these, state powerhouses has the best sprint kind of groups, and why is that, Corey? What are your thoughts?
In terms of volume and depth, it's hands down Texas. Like, on the boys' side alone, if you look at the number of boys under 11 seconds, it's Texas. There's a lot of them. Now, top 50 is a different story. Looking at just the results from 2022, I looked at the amount of athletes in those lists. And actually, on the boys' side, only 5 boys last year were in the top 50 in the 100. 8 were from California, 12 were from Florida. On the girls' side, 8 from Texas, 5 from California, 9 from Florida. So overall, Florida had the better high-end results than any other state in last year from the 100 specifically. Florida, no one beats, I think, Miami. Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. There's just, I think even Dallas, even Houston athletes, they can't compete with those Miami athletes. There's just a little bit different. I feel like when they enter races, they have that swagger and ability that just gets them to the line. But just like sprinting and the depth of sprinting is all about regions and where you live and how you operate. And you look at those big metro areas like Dallas, Houston, in Florida, it's Tampa, Miami, and North Carolina. It's I guess it's just, is it Raleigh, Charlotte?
Probably
area?
Raleigh, Charlotte, yeah.
Right, but that's not, I think, not necessarily always known for elite sprints. Although Trentavis Friday, I think, was from NC as well. So I'm gonna go with Texas depth, Florida elite ability.
All right,
overall.
Olivia, do you agree here, or do you have another take on this?
I kind of broke this down similar to Corey, like the process of this all. I looked at it for this current year, and I was like, okay, where did these states kind of match up? Okay. And I felt like it was kind of a flip of a coin until I went deeper into it. I was like, okay, from a team perspective, like relay perspective, I'm going Texas. And I'm looking at the top like relays in the nation, like the 4x1, 4x2, and 4x4. On the boys' side, they're all in Texas, okay? Individually, you have athletes like Lauren Lewis, you have Skylar Brazil, Faith Franklin. Like, those are a handful on the girls' side that are ranked currently in like the top 10 in the nation. So Texas is dominating right now when it comes to the relays. Now, individually, this is where I was like, okay, this is really interesting because a handful of the athletes ranked in the top 15 are all from Florida, like Adeja Hodge, Asama Singa, Micaiah Holland, Centeria James, Sophia Hagg, Skylar Franklin's in there. I'm going to even throw in Micah Larry because we know what he's capable of doing. And the only nation-leading team from Florida on the girls' side is in the 4x1, and that's Miami Southridge, their U.S. number 1. So looking at it, I was like, if we're looking at it individually, Florida's dominating. Currently, right now, as the season's unfolding, if we're looking at it relay perspective, where you can get a collective of 4 individuals to pass a baton around, we're looking at Texas. So I feel like it depends on what angle you want to look at it, Ashley. I feel like it just depends on how you want to approach it.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with both of y'all, honestly. Florida and Texas come to mind. If I'm thinking, I was kind of thinking to myself as I was going to this, like, at face value almost, like, which would I say, oh, this is, like, the best? And I probably would go Florida because I then in my mind was trying to list off, like, every, Florida star sprinter that I know off the top of my head, and it just was, like, this long list. And I'm like, well, I guess Florida's the best. But, obviously there's some great depth in all of these states, if you look at the top rankings, not just in the country, but even their state lists, like there's some elite marks all, in the top rankings. So, overall we have some really strong sprint squads across the country.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Didn't even mention Georgia, and Georgia here is probably like,
Dwight Phillips.
Give us some respect. Dang it.
Yeah.
Georgia's good.
Yeah. Georgia's always going to be in the conversation there. But heads up. That's why we like Brooks PR, I think, because Brooks PR brings in, basically like the top 10 ranked sprinters into their race, and you tend to see just how it unfolds.
That's for sure. Now, let's have one more final debate on this show. I know we ended indoor season with a lot of national records, some legendary performances. As we move into outdoor, are there certain records in events that we think are at most risk of going down in 2023? And I want to know why. So, Olivia, tell me, which records do you think could go down this year? And I know you have a list of records.
I have an extensive list here. I took this segment to heart. I was like, let me dive into it and really break this down. So just bear with me because there's more than 5 on here. Let's start off with who I've already spoke about earlier in the show, the girls' discus, Emma Estrella. She's on a roll, already produced the number 2 all-time in the discus, just inches away from Shelby Vaughn's national record. I'm also thinking, okay, who are the other returners who maybe broke a national record last year? In that conversation, 2,000-meter steeplechase, you have Angelina Napoleon, who broke that national record last year, 6:24:32. She's again returning this season. However, Carrie Beloga, someone who I think needs to be in that conversation as well, who's coming off a very strong cross-country indoor season as well. And her and Angelina have been going back and forth. They're both from the state of New York. They've been going head-to-head all outdoor season. So I feel like they're going to push each other and really potentially could lower that record down again. Also, 2-mile, Irene Riggs returns this season. She faced Dalia Frias last year at Brooks PR Invitational. Dalia actually broke the national record in that 2-mile race with a 9:50.70, and Riggs was just 0.02 of a second away from her. So I feel like with the returners, they're looking strong from this past indoor and cross country season, especially on the distance side. Now, when it comes to the sprints, I'm really gonna probably have a really hot take, and I can really hear Corey just like going at it right now. But for this girls' 100. Right? I'm just thinking about where Adeja Hodge is right now. And the fact that Brianna Williams went 10.94, I think you have Adeja Hodge in this conversation, Micaiah Holland, and I'm going to put in Shanti Jackson into this conversation as well. I feel just based off where Adeja was this past weekend, running 11.1, like, it's insane to think what she can do as this season continues to progress. Call me crazy now. I'm going to throw this 200 into this conversation as well. This is where I feel like Corey's just going to go crazy because Allison Felix went 22.11. I can erase that's Corey. And I'm just like, Adeja Hodge, just seeing what she did at New Balance National Indoors, running 22.33. Completely mind-blowing at the fact that was just a few weeks ago. And just to see, like, when she continues to put everything together and get stronger and get faster, and again, she's probably going to have a really long season. Like, we could potentially see something spectacular come from Adeja Hodge in this 200 meters as well. And I know we talked about the 100-meter hurdles. We don't have to dive too much into that, but I just feel like the girls' side is heavy and loaded with national records, and even the Mole sisters in the pole vault. I forgot to include them on that list, but like, just seeing the talent that we're currently seeing in this 2023 season, I feel like the list of girls I just named, and even that boys 200 meters, like, I think it's going to be crazy to even think about. But that's where my mind is at. I can see these national records potentially falling as this year unfolds a little bit more.
Corey, are you going crazy like Olivia thought you may at some of those predictions? What are your thoughts?
I'm not a crazy person. So okay. I had Dalia's Furious too on 2 miles, so I agree with you there. And the 100 and the 200, just want to mention here, the world U20 record for women's 100 is 10.88, and that was done in 1977. So 10.88.
That's crazy.
Can she break 11? Yes. I'm not going to put a prediction right now because I'm actually not even clear like where her ceiling is. So, but I do agree that she can go under 11. Needs to get in the right race though. The women's world U20 record in the 200 is 21.81 from Christine Mboma back in 2021. This was at a world U20 championships. Going under 22 seconds, I think, is also possible. I think you were on the verge of saying that last week, and you didn't want to tell yourself you could do that. So I do think it's possible. I think ever since Arian Knighton kind of came into the scene a couple years ago, and he broke 20 seconds for the first time as a high schooler, it opened the door for sprinters that made them realize it was possible. And now you have someone too, actually, Assam and Adeja, who are capable of doing it again. So I think they will be chasing after it. Arian ran 1984 as a 17-year-old, and then he ran 1969, which is the current 200-meter world U20 record a year later. That's going to be difficult for Assam, but do you agree that he could approach 20.09 or even break 20 seconds this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
That was no hesitation for me. I say yes.
So Noah Lyles has the official high school record, 20.09 seconds. I think he can approach that and maybe go faster. The only other ones that I have here are the girls 5K. It's at 15:25. It was done last year from Natalie Cook. Irene Riggs, I think, is capable. Ellie Shea could be capable as well. And then in the 3K on the boys' side, Tyrone Gorsey, I think, could go after German Fernandez's time of 7:59 from 2008. And I have Leo Young going after Lucas Verbekes' time of 8:29 from 2011. I think he's already put that out on the vision board, and Leo's going after that time this year. Maybe even at Arcadia, although they run 3,200 meters, so he can't do that. But I do think Leo's going after that 2 mile time this year.
Yeah, definitely some big records to chase after. Now, I don't know. I feel like my record, it may be a hot take, and I know last year was kind of deemed like the year of the boys 800. It was like, oh, this is the year it's going to be done. Well, I think it's going to be this year. Not last year, this year. I mean, we had Kate Flatt, Will Sumner really chasing after that 146 low mark. Yeah, that's my hot take.
Interesting. Go on.
I knew that would trigger you.
Go on. Triggered.
Yes. And obviously they got close. They got very close. But I mean, look what we saw indoors. Tanoda Matsatsa, Alex Leith, Aaron Solomon. Like, those are legit guys. I want to put respect on, Tanoda and Alex's names. Like, they went all-time performances, top 5 all-time performances at New Balance Nationals in the 800 indoors. Like, 148 point, that's just insane. And, I think they could really go after 146 this year. I really do. I have faith, and obviously, you have someone like Aaron Solomon who said he wants to go after that as well, and I think he could be capable. Got to put Kai Ricks now maybe in this perspective as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Where do they do it at?
That's a good point. I mean, you would have to get a good race. You'd have to get them all in the same race.
Trials of Miles is happening again. That's where Kate went 147. Yeah. I mean, if Tanoda's in Maryland or BC. I think
Yeah.
maybe if he goes there, maybe they.
I mean, maybe they come to this agreement again, like they did at New Balance, almost, where they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, let's all get in the same race and really
Right.
push each other." Then, because they've already done that before, so
yeah,
it
but
could
only
happen again.
one of those guys could do it though. It's like one's got to win. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's. Yeah.
I think it could happen though. I'm
hard.
optimistic. I'm optimistic. So.
If they do get into a Trials of Miles race, they're going to be paced by pros. I think if it happens, do you think it's a pro race or a high school race?
No, that's a tough question. I mean, obviously more likely a pro race. I could see it happening in a high school race potentially. Again, if all the elements are like there, but who knows?
Okay.
But that's my hot take.
Okay.
Was 800.
Interesting take.
Interesting take for sure, yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to see if any of these national records fall. So that'll be exciting to watch over the outdoor season. And now we end our show. Last one, best one. We have to talk about Texas Relays. I mean, me and Corey are here in Austin. It's coming to Austin this weekend. I'm super pumped. Corey's pumped. I'm sure Olivia's pumped back in Maryland. You know, what are we looking forward to most this weekend? Corey, since you're going to be on the ground, most likely. What are you excited for?
We talked about this yesterday at Cedar Park, and like Will asked, "Are we going to Texas Relays?" And at first, I said no. I think you said no, but thought about it, and I thought about Amanda Mull and Hannah Mull being there, and I don't want to miss it. I do think there is potential there for them to go over 15. Spoke with them recently, and I think they're, one thing that I learned about last year that surprised me was that Amanda believed all year that she was capable of going over 15. It didn't happen necessarily, but it came really quickly in the indoor season. Hannah is at that point now too. So I think those girls are the best we've ever seen. And at the Texas Relays, which is advantageous for pole vaulters as far as like the track, it's a fast runway, good conditions typically with wind and stuff. And I just think we could see something really special there with the girls. So that's why I followed the credential. I was like, I got to be here. I got to see it.
Yeah, now I kind of want to file a credential too and go, because I think there's going to be a lot of exciting stuff. And, when I think about what I'm looking forward to most, obviously the Mole sisters come to mind. People too, like Jace Posey is going to be in the high jump, which would be exciting to see as well. But also, I mean, looking at the distance, I love a good distance field. And if you look at these 1600s and 3200s, they're stacked. I mean, Texas distance talent is really good. On the girls' side, you have people like, Sam and Nicole Humphreys, Isabel Conde-Frankenberg, Kaylee Littlefield, Ava Bushaw, Alexandra Walsh. I mean, I could go on and on about how many top girls distance athletes there are in Texas, and they'll be competing this weekend head-to-head at Texas Relays. Same for the boys' side, someone like Kevin Sanchez in the 32, Reese Vanderson in the 16, and some other top names as well. So I think all around, not just the competition's going to be good, high school wise, and basically any event that you can get. So I think that's really exciting to see. Olivia, from your perspective afar, watching the results, what are you looking forward to?
I think we're all on the same page here. Posey, I'm looking forward to the Mole sisters. Like Hannah and Amanda are just two peas in the pod going after really big things in the pole vault, and the fact that they're coming all the way from Washington to Texas to do this once again, I am all for it. And I know, as you mentioned, Ashley, on the distance side, like there's just a handful of girls that are ready to line up and put it all together at Texas Relays, which is a really awesome meet. So I'm looking forward to all the high school competitions. So I think we all kind of agree there that it's going to be a great one.
Yep, I think we all agree. Texas Relays will be pretty cool this weekend to watch and see what happens. Well, guys, I think that ends our show. I know Corey already gave his show recommendation at the beginin. Maybe, Olivia, do you have a show recommendation?
I got more. I can give
you have more. You have more.
Well, Olivia, you got any recs?
Well, I watched The Bachelor last night, and that was just